Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar about hosted by AIJ Distribution together with appCURE. We will today talk about creating a dynamic application delivery methodology to transform applications to the modern desktop. A very long topic about some short acronyms. MSIX is the future of application distribution, according to Microsoft, and we will look at what that means in terms of how it's different to MSI and the traditional ways, and how you can use MSIX and MSIX appAttach to distribute your applications in a really cool way. I think this is a very exciting product from appCURE. And Microsoft, who's doing the actual MSIX stuff. So today we have with us Ryan Mangan, CTO of appCURE, and also Nigel Woods, who is the technical sales director for appCURE. So I'm going to hand over to Nigel, who will start doing the presentation, and then we will have a demo of what we can do with this. So thank you for attending, and I hope you will enjoy the webinar. Over to you, Nigel.
Thanks, Roger, and good morning, everyone. And as Roger said, welcome to this webinar. And so today we have myself and Ryan, just quick introductions. I'll do both. Ryan obviously can do more of his introduction, but so I've come from a background of a long time creating a Citrix Gold Platinum partner, and then many may have met me through the introducing FSLogix to Europe. So I did a lot of work with Roger Rowland and his team at ARJ when we introduced FSLogix around there. So I had my year at Microsoft and working on WVD team. So I saw a lot of where Microsoft were going with the MSIX appAttach, which we're going to talk about as well today, came out of the FSLogix acquisition. So it's been around for a while. It's taken time for people to really understand it and start getting the message across. So Ryan's job today is really to introduce those topics around MSIX and appAttach first, explain why we're doing all of these things, and then we can start to explain how appCURE can solve a lot of the challenges we've got around the applications. So Ryan is a Microsoft specialist, and he runs his own blog, Ryan Mangan's IT blog, that many of you may have seen, specialising in WVD, and all forms of EUC, including parallels and VMware and everything. So we've got a lot of experience around that. He's also written books on MSIX and appAttach. So if you want to go to Amazon, you can buy his book. I'm sure he'll be pleased for the plug on that. So today the agenda, what we're going to be doing, so Ryan's doing most of the work here, which is always good. And he's going to sort of start with trying to look at the differences between what we've considered as traditional application delivery techniques, the things that we're all doing every day, to the way that we want to be able to create this dynamic application delivery. He'll then go through and explain what MSIX is, how it's come about and everything, and then same with appAttach with some demos and everything, so we can see and set the scene. I'll come back and do the next piece, which will be introducing appCURE, what it does and how it works. And then we'll get back to Ryan to do the demos around appCURE and show you how we can capture these applications, deploy them to physical and virtual desktops. Please do put questions in at any time. We will do a Q&A at the end, unless we see something specific that we can jump into. But any questions, please ask. There's a lot of information here, we appreciate, but it's really critical that we start to get this across. So at that, I will pass you on, or if we could be passed on to Ryan, please, and then he will present his piece.
So if you want to do the next slides, it might be easier if I just say next slide, otherwise I'll take over the full session, Nigel.
Okay, Yeah, no, that's fine.
So when we look at traditional application delivery, the diagram you can see on the screen shows that you've got different department, different Windows operating system images. And as you can see in there, there's a user profile, common applications, and then depending on the department, there is specific applications for that user group. That is one concept. You may have everybody's applications on one image. You may have mix and match. It may be uncontrolled in the sense that you have a, what we call application sprawl across your desktop estate. So one of the challenges of obviously trying to manage images by grouping them into departments is you end up having a large number of images which then have to be maintained. And what we mean by that is being able to update and patch these applications as well as the operating system. For example, if we took the sales image and we needed to do a patch update, we would basically need to update the common applications, the sales app 1 and 2, as well as the image. So if we had 30, 40 departmental images, we'd have to go through that process 30, 40 times for them specific requirements, which, as you will may or may not know, is time consuming. And there has been cases where organizations do consume 8 days, a month for application layering or general updating and patching of their systems, which again, it has a sizable cost to the organization. So what we want to do is we want to kind of move forward, and Microsoft have defined traditional, modern and future in the sense of having modern is more about using app masking from the acquisition from FSLogix, where they have all your apps on one image and then use groups, but still you've got to manage the groups and you still need to patch every single application. It's not that easy to kind of manage. And then obviously we'll move on to future. Next slide, please. So traditional versus future. So one of the challenges you can get as well by managing traditional is, you know, natively it could be problematic. Trying to deliver them to individuals, to the desktops is problematic. Trying to kind of manage these images and know which image, excuse me, that user's using is challenging. Then you've got WinRot, as we know over time, maintaining Windows images and doing updates. The image can become corrupt. The image can have challenges itself. It may need, you know, disk scan and other things to try and repair that operating system. It may need a brand new image building. And there has been cases in the life cycle of a VDI environment where the image has come to a point where it is no longer usable. And then, interestingly enough, times are changing in our lives with the pandemic, which has affected us all globally. You know, the ever-changing user requirements. Users want things on demand. Users want things anywhere. Users want to be able to access their applications and infrastructure anywhere across the globe. That could be from their sofa or from an office block. And then obviously, as I've mentioned, alluded before, time to prepare. So, you know, the effort to prepare applications, the effort to update and the effort to deliver them traditionally is and can be very slow. Next slide, please. So then we start to take a look at MSIX. So MSIX is Microsoft's new packaging format. We say new, it's been around since 2018. And it originally derived from the appX and appv package structure. So originally appv and then appX, and then it formed into what we call MSIX today. And what this is essentially a zip file, which is a bunch of files zipped together, which creates a package container where the operating system of Windows can read that as a container and then take action from what we call an application manifest. So, you know, in MSIX, the kind of core benefits, and let me break them down for you in some very simple terms. One of the core benefits is people say it has 99% success rate. That's not true. It has a 99% uninstall rate. So if you were to remove it from the operating system, it's 99% likely to have a perfect uninstall, which is great because that resolves the application WinRot, user profile WinRot challenges which were there previously. But obviously, we'll come back to compatibility and application migration shortly. And then another interesting thing is all MSIX packages must be signed with a code signing certificate. And we'll talk about where you can get MSIXs from, creating them yourselves. But if you're to deliver an MSIX package today, you need to use a code sign certificate, either self-assigned or public. And then obviously, one of the interesting things about an MSIX package, which you can't do with a traditional application, is apply levels of security and other functions and features. For example, firewall rules. So if we take a look at VMware's NSX network security technology, with MSIX, you can potentially apply some of these security and port protocol rules to a containered application itself. So there's this whole heap of things which MSIX has to offer, which are currently not being used in the application space. Next slide, please. And then we look at an MSIX layout. So as we open up an MSIX, and forgive me if the image is a bit small, you'll see on the right hand side the actual zip container.msix, which has been expanded. And as we go down, we can see that the VFS, which is the virtual file system, is where all the application files are stored. So I'll link these for you so you can see it. And then you've got the app manifest, which is an XML file, which is basically a configuration file, as I mentioned previously, allowing you to control how that application behaves. You've then got the app signature, which is the certificate. And then within the app manifest, there's code integrity. And then there's the block map as well, which basically lists all of the files. And the block map is to do with block level transfers and performance. So as you can see, all of the Windows, the application files reside like they would do in the program x86 folder in the VSF folder. So if you were to go and look at them files, you would see them in there no different. And things like assets are related to icons, so icons for the package itself. And then you'll see resource .pri, as you may guess from the list of languages there, that's to do with images, languages, and so on. Next slide, please. So delivering MSIX packages. So believe it or not, if you have an Xbox, they are delivered to your Xbox with Microsoft's MSIX packaging technology, because they're using the universal Windows platform to deliver these applications. Nothing's changed there. It's just now Microsoft wants to unify that delivery across the board, across their technologies, and most likely they will try and push this into things like Google and so on and so forth. So as you can see at the top, that's one of the MSIX packages there. You'll see there's a few different packages there, like code blocks, GIMP, and hostfile.msix. And then you've got the Microsoft Store. So you can download offline through the Microsoft Business Store MSIX packages ready to go. So if you have purchased through company applications through the MS Business Store, or you want to use the pre-vendor created ones, you can download them from the store. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because these are already pre-code signed. So you can take these applications and just deploy them enterprise ready without having to do anything. You just need to make sure that they're offline. You can use things like Intune and other deployment technologies to link into the Microsoft Store. That enables you to be able to deliver them applications through the mobile device management capability technology. But the ways of doing it are manually or through the Microsoft Store. Next slide, please. So when we look at dynamic application delivery, this is a little bit more complicated, so you'll have to bear with me. You'll see that at the top we have a single gold image, which is the same image across the 3 virtual machines. We'll then see that user profiles are being delivered by FS Logic, so they're being attached at logon through a central store. So that makes the image agnostic. It's not required, for a specific user. It's flexible. And then we can see that we've got common applications like Microsoft Office, plugins, various things for the Microsoft Office, or products which everybody will have come under the common applications setting. So you'd install them on the image itself, because there's no point creating them all as individual departments, because that means more groups, more configuration in the long term. So really, if it's a common, everybody's going to use it application, you would have that on the image. You don't have to, but that's best practice from Microsoft. Then we've got the departmental applications. And the departmental applications, as you can see from these bizarre colors, is that they're all being attached with MSIX appAttach. And what's essentially happening is when the user logs on, a bit like the user profile, which goes first, it is then attaching them applications. And obviously, we're going to talk about MSIX in a minute, appAttach, and obviously the differences between MSIX and appAttach. But to summarize, there isn't a difference. So as you can see, appAttach is basically providing the delivery of the departmental apps via groups. Next slide, please. So as I've kind of mentioned from the delivery of application matrix, we can now look into how MSIX appAttach works. So before we get into the kind of flow, because this is what that is, I just wanted to mention that MSIX appAttach is available to any Windows 10 build 2004 onwards. What that means is just because MSIX appAttach for Windows Virtual Desktop is in preview, and they've made such a big fuss because that's one of the first kind of launches of the technology from a delivery mechanism, doesn't mean that you cannot use MSIX appAttach across the board. And obviously today I'm telling you can. So if you wanted to deploy MSIX appAttach to physical devices that could be remote or wired to a certain location, you can. If you want to deliver MSIX appAttach to VDI platforms on Windows 10 2004, you can. So Microsoft have not limited the capabilities, and I will cover the support elements of that in the end, but essentially Microsoft have obviously promoted and pushed Windows Virtual Desktop as a delivery mechanism. But if you were to use VMware App Vols as one element, you can. And if you were to use other third parties as well, you can use them too. So how it works is on WVD, that is, you connect to your remote desktop portal, which then uses the web feed you provided to connect to the workspace, which will then obviously then show you the host pools, and you'll click on the host pool of your choice. When you click on the host pool, it will launch you a session into one of them host pools, so a session host, and then it will then go through the process of assigning you a user profile. It will then assign you a user profile via FSLogix, hopefully, profile containers, and then once it's done that, it will then launch the applications. And MSIX appAttach works by a number of different process methods and steps, and the first one is staging. And with Windows Virtual Desktop, it stages the applications via the machine. So when the machine boots up, it pre-stages. What that means is it mounts the virtual disks and lets the system know the applications are available. When the user logs on, it then registers them applications. So, you know, the argument has been, and people have said, oh, it's going to be slow, it's going to delay logon times. No, the logon time impact is about 1.5 seconds, if that. So there's no real impact to that. But that's the process. So you go through the flow, you get the profile, and then you get the apps. Next slide, please. And when you're adding MSIX appAttach to WVD, you get a nice little UI. This is in preview, and hopefully it'll be out before April, May time, but we'll see. And you simply import all of your files, your MSIX appAttach files, into your Azure files or NetApp files share, and you simply fill out the bits and bats, and it will read, scan, and then set up the MSIX package. If the MSIX package is not in the correct format, it will fail the checks, and it will give you the error of why it wasn't successful. But Microsoft have done a very good job making this nice and simple for you to import applications, and you can assign them by application groups and security groups so that your users will get these apps without any interference. And one of the interesting things here as well with appAttach is one of the key benefits is you can release a new version of that application to that user immediately. So they could be working away and you can give them a new version of the application. And then once they've switched over during session, that is, you're able to then remove the old if you wish, or you can leave it until they log off. So there's never been a time where we've been able to do application delivery and replace applications or updates during session. It's not happened before. And so when we look at some of the benefits, MSIX appAttach is bringing this capability, not meaning everybody will adopt it, but the capability to do in-session changes of applications or updates, which is quite powerful in a large scale. Next slide. And then just to kind of wrap this up, okay, so Windows Server 2019, which a lot of people are using for RDS and other vendor platforms, is in the long-term servicing channel, the branch. There's no support for MSIX appAttach because it's still on an old version of the APIs in the code. Question, will they update it? Microsoft is still finding out and will let me know when they do. But today, you cannot use MSIX on Server 2019, not because it's not going to be supported, but because it's in the LTSC branch. MSIX and the APIs, the application framework, including MSI packaging tool, is general release. You can deploy this globally under enterprise today. There's no change in that. That's been around for some time. If you wanted to adopt MSIX, and deliver that across your estates today, you can do that. And you can also use the mobile device deployment management tools out there like VMware Workspace ONE and Windows EndPoint Manager to do that. And then when we take a look at MSIX appAttach, again, the additional APIs are released on Windows 10 2004 onwards, and they support MSIX appAttach in general release. So if you want to use MSIX with other vendors today, outside of WVD, like VMware App Vols, appCURE and others, then you can do that under general release today. And then the final point is MSIX appAttach in WVD. This is in preview, as I mentioned previously. Hopefully that it will become production soon. I hope you're not using PowerShell scripts if you are using MSIX appAttach. And that is, believe it or not, in GA, but obviously you've got to support the scripts yourself. So I would wait for the WVD module to come GA before you start playing around with WVD and PowerShell. And I think that concludes the kind of introduction of these two technologies.
Excellent. Thanks, Ryan. So let me get on to where appCURE fits into this. So Ryan's explained where MSIX and appAttach are coming in and are now GA for most things. We're still waiting for the Windows 2019 server, as Ryan mentioned, but other than that, we have a way of moving forward. So we have to think about not only MSIX and appAttach, we have to think of all the general packaging formats. But what's the main problem we're seeing in the industry? And this hasn't changed ever since I've been doing this since 1998. We've seen the problem is not building the desktops, the EUC desktops, the physical desktops. That's got easier and easier. And we speak to people who say, well, actually, we can build a Citrix WVD or anything desktops in 24 minutes now and be up and running. That's fine, but it's the applications that are holding us back. So what we're finding is we're having applications that are 30 or 40 years old. We've got back to applications that are running that are from 1988 as the earliest ones we've found so far. And these are core applications. These are not just legacy not being used. We've seen them everything from being, many of the car manufacturers use them. I was talking to a customer the other day, the oil tankers, the ships, the actual unloading of those is done by a Windows XP machine. But everything from government to healthcare to education, we're seeing applications that are still very much productive, but there were probably a lot of them were written in-house, and the media has been lost. Developers are not great at documenting and keeping everything, and it was probably stored on an old NAS device somewhere, which got deleted in 2004. So there's no media to actually reinstall these. So they sit on old devices, as I say, anything back to Windows 95 we found, and they sit there on old devices and they can't be moved because they don't have the either the media or the information. So we see this a lot. They can't find how to install the application. They've got the media, but the instructions of actually how to configure it have been lost. We're also seeing a lot of environmental flux. So many of the people we speak to at the pandemic stage last March, I know it's slightly different in Sweden. Most countries locked down quite severely in March last year, and still, if you're in the UK, we're still locked down. And what happened is people had to start working from home immediately. So there was a lot of people who had physical devices and they ramped up their Citrix infrastructure or their WVD, introduced up WVD into the clients and everything. So a lot of physical to virtual, but likewise a lot of virtual to physical. So these EUC desktops couldn't cope with the workload, with the load. So we see, and we talked to a number of people who've they went out and bought 30,000 laptops for their staff and just let them work from home. So we're seeing a lot of physical to virtual to physical, and we're also seeing the flux between the virtual providers. So we deal with everyone from the Microsoft WVD, Citrix, VMware, Amazon, Parallels, Cameo. There's a lot of different ones, and we're seeing a lot of movement between these as well. So we've got to be able to have the ability to pick these applications up and move them easily between these different providers. And what's happening is essentially we're getting very long project times because of the applications. So what happens is, say, we can actually spin up the workspace really, really quickly these days. And if we've got the workspace up and running, that's great. But if we can get the applications to be delivered at the same time as the workspace, then we have happy users, customers. But as we get to the applications taking longer and longer, we start getting more unhappy ones. And then we get to what we speak daily to customers who are being told that their applications, we've got a bank at the moment, they've got 400 applications, they've been told it's going to take them 3 years to get their applications into the modern desktop. So you can build your EUC and physical desktops in 24 minutes, but you'll have to wait 3 years for the applications. This isn't good for anyone. If as partners, you'll be wanting to get managed services, you want to be able to get this up and running as quickly as possible. The art here is not to do the old way of just having pure consultancy. This is all about maintaining managed services. So delivering these things quicker, better, and more efficiently. That's how you retain the customer base. So being able to get to the applications at a reasonable time level is really important. But applications are complex to move. If you haven't got all of the pieces, there's a lot of different pieces to an application, then that's where it starts getting complicated. How do you pick up applications from any desktop and find all the pieces you need and bring them into the modern desktop? And that's what we do with appCURE. So the CURE of appCURE stands for Capture, Update, Remediate, and Execute. So the key piece of this is really the capture. So we have the ability to find the installed parts of the applications. There's all different areas of them, some from DLLs, registries, services, lots of things that we need to look at in any application. And this is on any operating system, as I say, going back to Windows 98 and beyond. We need to find those pieces, and we can capture those. We can actually take the pieces we need of the running application. It's really important. So for a change, if any of you have done AppV and experience with that, what you're doing there is you're basically installing it on a fresh desktop to understand which bits are being installed. What we do is we look at the running application. So we want it on a dirty machine. We want it with all of the pieces underneath it so that we can capture everything, all the components that we need of that application. It's really important. Microsoft stated on a webinar the other day that we were on, is the only way you can capture applications is if it's running, because that's when it's loaded, it's all its core pieces. There is times when an application will pick up DLLs as it runs, but we can capture them as long as it's running. We know the locations of where they're running. So the capture piece will actually look, and all of the time we're learning where the places are that are required to gain the capture all the information we need. As Ryan explained, With the MSIX, we have things like the package support framework, which allowed us to update and remediate if we're moving to MSIX, or if we if we don't pick up enough to create the other packaging formats, which I'll explain about, then we have an update and a remediate piece. And then the final piece, and Ryan's going to go through all of these with you, is the execute. So we want to take that captured app and deliver it in the method that's best for you. We talked about MSIX and appAttach. There are preferred delivery methods, but we appreciate people haven't got there yet. So we will make that application available natively installed. So in a program 2 folder, we call it, and so that will run directly onto the desktops. We will put it into appV, so we can actually create the appV packages. We can create it as an MSI, and then of course MSI and MSIX. So hopefully we can deliver into the method that you require. As I say, lots of moving parts of an application that we have to pick up, and that's where the capture piece is the key. We need to find all of these and put them into appropriate place where they can be run in these modern desktops. And we deliver that in the format of your choice, or multiple as well. So we don't have to just do this in one format. We could deliver them in different formats, same application. And then, as we've explained today, what we want to get to is the MSIX formats. That allows us to use the package support framework. A lot of the work we're working on, and the reason we talk about this a lot, is the automation that we're building, which will be coming out this. We've already about to launch a load more things around automation and optimization of this delivery method, and that is where the MSIX piece comes in. So hence we talk about this a lot. So just a summary of that. So we want to be able to capture any application on any Windows desktop, or that could be obviously on a legacy server as well. So many of the opportunities we've got existing Windows 2008 implementations with Citrix Synapse 6.5, and this is hundreds of servers of these, and staying there because the applications don't work in Windows 2019 or Windows 10. So we can capture any of those. We can install them in the format that we required. If we're doing a Windows desktop, we can get them into MSIX and appAttach, allow the delivery of those through to any both physical and virtual desktops. So why do we do this? We want to be able to deliver these in minutes, not years. So with the ability we've got here, we're actually capturing, we're automating, so we're making this a reliable way of doing things. So instead of doing 6 apps a month, which is what's being quoted to some of the customers we talk to, we could do 6 apps a day. By the time we've finished, we'll probably do 60 apps a day with the way we're working. We're not having to try and find all the install media. We're not having to do that investigation piece, which is, in my experience, the hardest piece, because there's too many moving parts, too many people involved in these things. By doing this and automating it, it improves the ability to test this. We've captured everything, so the testing piece is a lot easier. Being able to deliver the same application to both physical and virtual. And as we move forward, we'll be able to deliver applications directly down to a desktop remotely. You know, what we've seen with the pandemic, particularly, is that, as I say, people have got physical devices now. They're trying to run some things physically, some through their Citrix session, for instance. I'm very much a firm believer, and we all are, around this model of hybrid computing, where we deliver the applications that can work best on the physical desktop. We'll bring down to the desktop with MSIX and appAttach. Yet again, reason we do it. We can deliver those. We can deliver them through Citrix Workspace. But if they're better to be run virtually because of security, performance, sometimes the application has to be next to its compute, its databases, then we can make those choices, and so we can deliver the best and optimal experience. If you've got a physical desktop at home, why not use the power of it, but also maintain that security and the performance when you need it. Delivery, so, and then the timescales, we want to reduce these timescales. Let's get these projects done better, quicker, get to managed services. That's how, as a partner, you can really accelerate how much work you're doing if we can get to those things. Really key of this is that we use appCURE to deliver to any of these devices, so both virtual and physical. We talked about that a lot today, but it doesn't matter which cloud provider, it doesn't matter whether it's physical or virtual, a mixture of all of them. We're seeing a lot of this, so we can deliver to all of them at the same time with the same format. And then we, of course, the other piece that we work on is the evergreen. So the fact that Windows 10, Windows 2019 has this patching update cycle every 6 months, we need to be able to cope with that as well. So we link into digital repositories, application repositories, to maintain those applications. But we also call into a diagnose piece, which will look at any application and do MD5 hashes, check for malware, viruses in those applications, and also check to see when the next patch level comes out for Windows 10, whether all your applications will work. So they do, through our appCURE services, we'll deliver that to be diagnosed for you and brought back. So we can get a lot of information just by understanding all of these applications. But we haven't finished this. We're only going to show you up to the deliver today. So Ryan's going to do you some demos around the capture and deliver now. But I see this is really not the starting point, because this is a massive piece, but there's still a long way of being able to do the automation pieces and the optimize. So we've got some great techniques as we move forward to actually optimize not only the delivery but the actual performance of these applications as we move forward. That if we can get to the stage where we understand all our applications, this allows us to move forward very quickly with any of these pieces. We have a lot of information around that you can link to. So we're Microsoft WVD and MSIX partners. We work directly with both teams, and which is really great. We have the ear of the WVD team, which I was in, so I know many of the developers of all of this because they're FS Logics developers, and we've got really close contacts into the MSIX team. What we're aiming to do is bring the two together, and the MSIX and WVD teams are not necessarily on the same page at Microsoft, so our job is to deliver and make people understand just the importance of both of these, as well as, of course, focus on what we've done for many years, which is that Citrix, VMware, and any other of the EUC departments. So I'm going to stop there. It's now time, if we can get to Ryan to present, and then he will demonstrate how appCURE can capture these applications and deliver them through the studio.
Okay, so back to me.
It is.
Okay, brilliant. So what we have here is a Windows 7 device, first of all. So we're going to first look at the capture. So we're going to basically take a running application off a Windows 7 device and then package it ready in an MSIX ready to run on Windows 10 or over. So first of all, I've installed Foxit Reader. So we'll just go have a quick look to kind of show everybody that we've got Foxit installed. You see Foxit's installed there, and if you get into the control panel, clicking wrong buttons here, you can see it's installed. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to run the appCURE capture. The reason why the UI looks like it's ancient is because it has to go backwards. We can capture applications from 98 onwards. So we are limited to what we can do with the UI. But the Packager and Studio are much nicer. I believe Roger will be also pleased with that. So we're going to run Foxit Reader first, make sure the application is running. Okay, so that's an application running. We're going to go through the capture wizard following the instructions. And then I'm going to click Start. And what this does is it looks for the applications running. As you can see, Foxit Reader's there, and I'm going to use the select application. So we select the application, and then what that will do is it asks me a series of questions what you want to do, and the answer is yes for all of them. And we'll do a copy and replace of them all. And that is it. We've just captured an application, and everybody was thinking, what? And there's the application. So what we do now is we take that program folder, which has been captured, and we then take that over to the new or the packaging machine. And in this instance, I like to call that appCURE Studio, and this is the packaging machine for that. So just to recap what I've just done, because it was very quick, is I've literally ran Foxit Reader, I've captured it into a program folder, and then I've taken that program folder and put it into here. So it's all there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the packaging tool to now go forward and prepare that for use on delivering to other devices. So this is the appCURE packager, previously known as the installer. And you have the option to edit manifests and things down here if you want to. But obviously we're not going to be doing that. Follow the instructions. If you haven't got a license key, you need to apply one, and this will disappear. Ignore this because it reads out the local directory. Then it asks me a series of questions. Do you want to check for DLLs? Yes, we do. It'll then create a log of any missing DLLs on that within that application, which you can go and find from Windows 7 and place them in that folder afterwards. Then it copies all the files. And then we move on to the bit about packaging, where it's going to create the MSIX container. So you can add some modifications to the manifest if you want, so you can make them changes. We're just going to ignore that because we're going to do defaults. And then we're going to create the certificate. So what this does now is it goes through the process of running, creating packages. So it's going to create an MSIX. It's already created the program 2 folder. That's done. It's then going to create a PSF fix-up folder, which I'll talk about in a minute. It's then going to sign the package. For some strange reason, it didn't like that. So I'm going to run it again really quickly because it doesn't take long. Damn them demos. So let me just, right, the reason why it didn't work is because this is on a new machine and I didn't specify the certificate. So more for me. And as you see, when you get into the flow of things, this is incredibly quick. Doesn't take long at all to go through and create the MSIX package and prepare the program 2 folder. So it's not a very slow process. It can be done in a matter of a minute or so. So there we have Foxit Reader. Now I actually followed my own instructions. Pretty shocking, really. If I click install now, I should be able to get Foxit running as an MSIX on this Windows 10 machine. And lo and behold, there you go, Foxit Reader as an MSIX. And what's interesting is if I go into Control Panel now and do the programs and features, we should see that it's not installed. Yep, it's not installed. But if I went into Apps and remove programs, you'll see it in here because it's an MSIX. Filter by date. There we go. Let me run it again and ask you to install. Okay, so what we've done is, so this program 2 folder is the kind of output of the application. So we don't have to create an MSIX. We can create an MSI, we can create a self-extracting application. We're not binding you to an MSIX, and I'll go through an MSI in a second. But also what we've done as well is some of the applications may have challenges because they're old and they require certain things, certain dependencies, and they need to be registered. So what we do is we create a PSF fix-up package, which allows you to basically modify the manifest and the JSON file, which allows you to then basically A, debug the errors which it's got, and B, fix them. So you can do generic fix-ups as well, as you can see the launcher and things are in there, and then repackage that ready into an MSIX if you wish to use that. So what we're doing really is we're preparing you with all of the equipment you need so that you can either fix an application or deliver them very quickly. And as you can see as well, we get a missing DLL list as well of anything what might be missing. So that's the package, and obviously you've seen the package work. What we're going to do now is jump over to Studio, and what we're going to do is we're going to take that program 2 folder, and I believe we're going to go temp. Set the program 2. We're then going to call it Foxit. Give it a version number. And then select the executable. And then what we do is we create the MSI. While that's just finishing off, I'll start talking through this and we'll come back to that. But essentially, there's not many organizations who can spit out an MSI package that quick. You know, I put that challenge out on the table there, gauntlet's been dropped. The aim of what we do at appCURE is being able to deliver these applications incredibly quickly. So first of all, we talk about capture. So what the Studio does, the Studio enables you to kind of manage enterprise packages, transform packages, and manipulate and prepare for whatever circumstance you require. So under the capture, it seems it follows the same motto of appCURE, so capture, update, remediate, execute. You know, you can see there's things like converting from an appv package to an MSIX. We have seen to date from testing a higher success rate of converting appv to MSIX, and we can do that straight away from the wizard. There's things like features and functions, so if you need to enable developer settings for when you're modifying and testing applications, you can do that from here. And then obviously we've got things like virus scanning, virus total for checking packages when you scan them, and also future integrations coming with application readiness so that you can basically do all of the MD5 hash checking as well. And then we've got the kind of 3 key areas I want to talk about, which would be the remediate, execute, and certificates. Before I do that, I'll quickly run through the tools. So we can also look at on the right hand side here, the MSIX package user folder. So an MSIX creates a virtual container of some of the application data, which resides when you remove it, so the application can remember it. It gives you the option to delete it as well. And also you can see the installation path of the MSIX is installed as well. So we have built in the abilities for you to kind of take a look at the different ones which are MSIX. You can also repackage these and convert them into MSIs if you wish to. So tools, just some of the bits and bats you may need or wish to use while you're debugging applications, and there'll be certain new features like PSF reader and things going in there in due course. Then we take a look at the remediate. Obviously, we've just done the MSI bit. And as you can see, these are previous MSIs created like Skype and so on. And then we've got the MSIX app attach stuff. So before we do that, we've also then got the execute, where we look at some of the things we might want to do, for example, app vols. And then I'm going to come on to them in a minute. So we've created an MSIX, which is called Foxit Reader here. And what we want to do now is we want to change the certificate. To do that, you would normally have to go to the Microsoft Packaging Management tool and open up the application and then change the manifest and change the bits and bats and then re-sign it, or download the developer tools, edit the manifest, and then sign the package and then close it, which is quite a long. One of the kind of things we've developed, and this is also CLI, everything you can see in the appCURE Studio is CLI driven as well, is the ability to select a directory, select the certificate, PFX and password, and that will go through and modify all of the manifests and reinsert every single MSIX you have with the correct the new certificate you have provided without any intervention, which is a case of you going making a cup of tea and then coming back and it will have been done. And this can be done by CLI as a part of an ongoing process, or it can be done through the UI, as you can see here. We've then got things like creating a self-assigned certificate. So if you wanted to create a certificate, and I'll just pipe that out to desktop so we can quickly see it. It very quickly creates you the test certificates, self-assigned certificates you can use when packaging applications for testing purposes. We also have the ability to extract a certificate. So if we take the MSIX, we run and we extract it to the desktop, and we'll just call it and that will extract the certificate in due course onto the desktop, which is there. And then we can open that up and have a quick look, and then you can see we've taken that certificate from the MSIX. It's not affected it, I don't believe. But obviously we've now got that certificate what the MSIX had. Then also the ability to rapidly install. So if you've got a certificate, rather than going through wizards and the pain of that, you can literally put in the PSF, select the PSF password, and it'll install that into the correct repository so that you can crack on and get on with packaging. So we've put in speed buttons to get to certain things. We're not there to kind of reinvent the wheel, essentially making it a lot easier for you to get on with your packaging jobs than having to kind of open up all these wizards and have all these screens open while you're trying to do the application side of things. And then we're going to go back to execute, where we look at, encryption and decryption of MSIXs is a good one. So basically, we've got an MSIX, which we have here. And there's various different use cases. One use case could be that the MSIX has sensitive data inside it. It could be an XML database, which is not, which the customer does not want to expose to the outside world. We want to keep that protected. And then you have the ability to take that MSIX and encrypt it. And what will happen then is, if we go back to here, we now have an encrypted MSIX. And obviously we need the key to be able to undo that. So if I change that to a .zip, which an MSIX is. It's unusable. But if I change this to a .zip, I can then see all the content inside that package. So you can, unless you have that key, which you can create your own or use ours, you are essentially pretty much render the application unusable. We then got the ability to upload all of your stuff. So for example, we create a lot of applications, we can select the folder, and that will go through and upload all of them packages into Microsoft Azure under the selected, so we select the folder, under the selected share and the string. So you just put in the string, which it remembers for next time, and then the share. If it's an existing, it won't create a new one, it'll just use it. If it's new, it'll create the share within that Azure Files container. Essentially just allowing you to, again, go make a cup of tea and come back, and all of your MSIX or MSIX appAttach images are within Azure ready for consumption. So then you can go through and configure WVD, MSIX to kind of use them applications. We have two other features as well, which is self-extraction app. So you can take the program2 folder and convert it into a self-extracting app. So when you run the app, it opens it in temp. When you close the app, it deletes it out of temp. And then we have the ability to convert nice and quickly a package into Intune content prep. This could not just be an application, it could be a license file. So sometimes you need to deliver applications or license files to the desktop or the laptop of a user. So you can basically create a little command prompt with the license file to install that or move it to a directory, and you can then package it using the Intune content prep to be able to deliver that, which is quite powerful because some of the limitations of Intune are that you can't deliver files natively. You have to put them into content prep. And then we've got MSIX. If you've got an MSIX appAttach package, you can convert that to a usable format of app volumes, which is basically just adding a manifest to it so that app volumes can read it. But obviously we'll come into MSIX appAttach now. So what we have is, I'm just going to convert this back. What we have is a lot of tools here, and the first one we're going to do is we're going to create an image. But essentially, MSIX appAttach consists of 10 to 15 steps, and what we've done is whittled them down to a couple. So you're going to see we're going to create an MSIX image in 2 steps because obviously it's quite painful to go through each individual step and loads of PowerShell. So first of all, I'm going to create a disk. This is all CLI driven as well, by the way, so you don't have to do it by GUI. We offer both options. And then I'm going to create a VHD today. I'm just going to call it RM. And the application obviously is Foxit. And then I'm going to mount that. So then it creates a disk and gives you an output of the GUID, just so if you need that. And that disk is now mounted. So then what we're going to do is take the MSIX on desktop, and we're going to expand that, which is basically unzipping it and applying system ACLs to the image. And we can do one of many, so that I'm just doing one, but you can do hundreds. So if you had a load of MSIXs in a folder, we could put them all into one app as well. Okay, so then I go back to the disk drive now. I've done that, and we can see we now have an error saying permissions and Foxit readers now in there and prepared. Okay, so I'm just going to eject that now because we're done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to test. I'll come back to the other stuff in a minute. And I want to test every app on that. So if I click test now, what should happen is it runs through the process. And what you're seeing here is appAttach being performed via the testing tool. So this is appAttach running. And as you can see up here, appAttach is working. That is delivered by appAttach. And if I go to disk management now, it should have mounted the disk as a, oh, really gonna kind of work on that. Disk management. You can see that the disk is mounted as read only, and that app is running. And then if I do remove apps, that'll clean up all of the mess and you just need to reject that. And we have this fully automated as well, which I'll show you in a second. So that is just an MSIX appAttach just created. And then what we have is SIM creation. So SIM is the composite file system. It offers under large environments lower performance consumption. So basically it impacts the operating system much less. So what we can do is we can basically take what we've just done and convert this into SIM. I'm not going to mount it, it's going to convert it, but I'm going to select it. So the trick is as well, what we want to do is create a folder, because with a SIM, it creates a number of flat files. And the problem you've got with that is if you're creating lots of SIMs, that's going to be quite hard to kind of trace them, and you'll see what I mean in a second. And obviously the region and object files. So what this means is the SIM is the metadata call, and then it comprises of a number of region and object files. The data actually resides in the regions. The objects is more metadata and config information. But obviously when you create multiple SIM images, the challenge you have is that it creates the same, it just creates object and region files and then a SIM. So it's very hard for you to segment and separate them unless you create a folder. So that's obviously now a SIM, and what I'm going to do now, just for the fun of it, is I'm then going to go and select the SIM. And by the way, appCURE is the only company at the moment commercially who can offer the full SIM capabilities and do the testing of SIM as well. So we now run that as a SIM. App's there. App works as SIM. And the interesting thing about SIM, because it's a new file system, it doesn't actually use a disk manager. So we've got a disk management. You'll see it's a disk drive. Yeah, that's right, because I've done it potentially that way. But it does it as a volume. So if I went to CMD, yeah, because on the testing we get it to mount as a an E drive so you can see it. But if we do mount vol, you'll see that these are all kind of linked up. And then remove SIM. That should still reside here, yeah. Okay, cool. So that's SIM testing, SIM conversion. And then obviously this is all great, but the problem what people have is we want to do it mass. So first of all, I've got a folder full of apps, okay, called all these apps there, yeah. Need to test them all. So the first thing I want to do is I want to run the testing script to test all my apps. So what it's going to do is going to go through and mount all the apps for testing, as you can see. And then what we want to do is we want to then look at the event log and see if there's any apps with issues. And what we can do in here is we can have a look at why apps haven't packaged, and there's a deliberate reason why I've done this way. There you go. So there is errors and why they've failed. So we're testing, seeing what the errors are. We can export this log and look at them in CSV as well. Nice and easy to kind of see what's going on. Okay. And then what we can do is then just click enter, and what will happen then is it'll clean up. And then if you want to run it again, does it again, and then they're all cleaned up. And then the interesting one, which as well we've got, and this is just some of the API we're doing. If we went to sim images now, run this, what it does now is it starts creating all of your, converting all of your VHDs into sim without you having to do anything. So this is DevOps ready. This could be automated through orchestration software. There's no input from the user, it just does it automatically. So if you wanted to convert and create all your MSIXs into appAttach and VHD or VHDX format, you can then convert them straight away into sim using our capabilities. So you can also test automatically as well and just pull out the event logs and read them and see what challenges you had. There's various different use cases on there. And same with signing packages. All of this can be CLI'd and is obviously going to be DevOps, and we're going to build DevOps modules which will go into the marketplace in the future. I'm just going to stop that. Any questions?
Yeah, there was a question in the Q&A about where would you recommend you start with the MSIX and MSIX appAttach?
Okay, where you would start?
Where would you start? Where would you start finding information? I have put some links into the Q&A for everyone to see, which includes your blogs, Ryan. So,
yeah, I mean, you can read up on the content, and Microsoft have produced some good stuff as well on just an introduction to MSIX appAttach. But from a testing perspective, I would probably look at important, irritating departmental applications and seeing, because obviously there is good and bad use cases with some applications. Some applications are not developed very well, and there's also the ones which work great. So I would probably look at start with MSIX, and if you can do MSIX, then get them into appAttach very quickly. So if there's no issues with MSIX, there's no reason why you shouldn't be using MSIX appAttach. Remember, and this is the big important thing, MSIX appAttach is no more than a vehicle delivering MSIs in a container. A bit bizarre because MSIX is a container, but essentially it's the attach and detach capabilities which makes it better or special compared to anything else. The MSIX is doing all the work. The appAttach is just attaching and detaching, if that makes sense.
And
Roger, we have one more question now. When capturing apps, can you capture server and desktop apps?
Yes. The answer is in short.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of opportunities with server apps now, so which are being held back in, tend to be Windows 2003, 2008, and we have the ability to pick those type of applications, particularly middleware type applications, and that are on servers at the moment, and be able to capture those.
Yeah, I would say that if you haven't looked at MSIX as a format, you should probably start looking at the MSIX packaging tool to do it the way Microsoft has made it, and that way you will also see how this is easier to actually get working with appCURE. So that's part of it, and the benefits of MSIX is amazing when you can just take it from one place and just put it there, and it literally takes taking an app from a 2008 server and moving it to a 2016 server is a matter of minutes, whereas even if you don't have the installer, or it could be a couple of minutes unless it's very problematic and you need to figure out what's going on, but it's super easy. And if you don't have that installer and you don't know what to do with it, then you're stuck. You can't go anywhere, and that's why people are left on those Windows 98, 95 machines and still out there, struggling to get away from there. So moving from an older OS is one thing, but also as these traditional methods are, with appv and so on, are shutting down or going end of life, then you need an alternative. So.
And I think one of the other things we found is with the MSIX packaging tool, it doesn't have the success rate, and so Microsoft keep delivering and keep asking us to see if we can package these particular applications, because they can't do it with the packaging tool. So it does a limited amount, and it's a typical thing with Microsoft where they give you a small amount of things, but it only goes a certain amount of way. So
well, yeah, but I think it's a good pointing to start with, to use that tool, because that's how it's supposed to work. That's how it was made from start.
Correct. Yes.
So, but it will also maybe mean that you see that you may need a different tool to it.
I think one of the things as well, and we didn't really cover it, we didn't say that that the only product out there on the market to capture an existing running application is appCURE. So if you have no installation media, then the only way to do it would be today on the market would be to use appCURE. I think that's one bit we did miss out.
All right. There's not a whole lot of questions, but we will. I think we'll share the slides anyway with the people that were joining, so they should have that sent to them in an email today or tomorrow, and then we will also share the recording of this. So if you want to share it with your peers, you can do that. And obviously, I'm available if you have any additional questions, and also Nigel and Ryan will be available. But reach out to me, and I'll get it sorted if you have a specific case or so in mind. So I think we're done for that. Anything you'd like to add, guys?
No, thank you for listening today, and thanks, Roger, for organising. I hope that's been useful.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Nigel, for today, and have a great day. And I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.